Who knows what Jay-Z, J.K. Rowling, Bill Gates and Oprah Winfrey all have in common? Okay, I will tell you then. They have all overcome failure in one shape or form to go on to gain success in their respective careers. Welcome to My Perfect Failure. Join us as we delve into the world of our perfect failures. We will interview, explore, and discuss how our perfect failures can lead us to success. Join us and tune in.
Welcome everybody to another episode of My Perfect Failure. Today, I'm extremely excited because we have another fantastic guest for you. So my guest today is your guide to breaking free from feeling stuck, lost, overwhelmed, and burnt out. With a passion for inspiring women, she offers a transformative journey to shift from the depths of anxiety, depression, and disillusionment and feel full of purpose and vitality instead. As a certified life transformation coach, international wellness consultant, and yoga facilitator, speaker, and author, she brings a wealth of expertise to help you unplug from the daily hustle and rediscover your life true direction. She's been in the wellness and coaching industry for 16 years plus and has also experienced burnt out twice. She knows what it feels like to be at rock bottom, and by using a combination of ancient healing tools and modern science-based techniques, has personal experience of how to heal and to feel 100% happy, healthy, and whole again. She's transformed hundreds of women's lives through a Redesign Your Life online program, personalized one-to-one coaching, and international retreats even. She also equips you with the essential tools and unwavering support to reshape your life story. So a very, very, very warm welcome to My Perfect Failure, Sharni Quinn. How are you?
Oh, hello, Paul. Thank you so much. I'm very, very well. How are you doing today?
I'm really well. I was getting more and more excited. I was navigating through your bio, so I've shrink wrapped it a little bit, but I wanted to get the core elements in. So I'm excited. Before we hit the record button, I said I was excited to have this conversation. I am, because I'm keen to learn, to evolve, and to pick up some, from a selfish perspective, I'm keen to pick up some tools, techniques, understanding about how I can shift things a little bit when things are getting a little bit difficult, as they do periodically. I guess what I was keen to do initially is to get into a little bit about you. So you're Cape Town, you're from Cape Town, are you?
Yes, originally from South Africa in Cape Town, but I have lived in London for 2 years, so I do know the UK lifestyle. That was a very long time ago, though. Loved that. And then before that, I've been in Bali for the last 5 years as well. So kind of, hopping, experiencing a bit of life everywhere. But home now with the family, and it's in Cape Town.
Yeah. And how did you cope with the weather in London?
Oh, well, I think that was the biggest reason why I had to leave.
Really?
Because it was just very grey and cold for me, and now having lived in a tropical island for 5 years, it's very, very different experience. So I feel like I've had all these wonderful experiences in my life, and that's why I love what I do, and I love being able to be, come onto podcasts like yours and share these stories, and just share some inspiration and wisdom, and the ups and downs, because there's definitely downs as well, the ups and downs of all that life brings.
Absolutely. So London might not see you for a while.
No, I loved London. I really did. And it was just to be there full time with the weather. It was, I'm definitely a summer sunshine kind of person.
Yeah, because even when it's sunny in London, it's not that comfortable, because if you're in central London, you're not wearing the right clothes and very hot, and we don't get the warm weather nearly as much as we like. So I think Bali, Cape Town, I think that they are definitely weather-wise superior. No question about it.
Well, there's pros and cons to everywhere, and I mean, there's so many wonderful things that I really adored about London. But I need to actually come back. I haven't been there for a while, so you might see me soon.
Well, I've got my fingers crossed. We can do one of these in person.
Wonderful. We can do it in person. That'll be
Yeah,
amazing.
that'd be amazing. So fabulous. So this episode is what to do when life has other plans for us, which it periodically does. What I'd like to do initially maybe is to get a little bit into your background. I'm fascinated by the fact that you do yoga and you do these retreats and you do lots of wonderful things to help women, your clients, corporate clients, people all over the world. You run the retreats. How did you get into yoga?
Good question. So I think what I often say when people ask me this question is I got into yoga because I was in advertising before, and it kind of burnt me out. And so yoga was the tool that I was using at the time to support myself from being an entrepreneur and having my own company and yeah, doing the crazy advertising deadlines and just being, you know, my own boss was actually, it was challenging. And yoga, I've always been a dancer, so I started dancing when I was 3 years old, and it was just a progression to still move my body. But I remember going to a gym session and, you know, like aerobics, it was a few years ago, aerobics was still very cool. And I was in this aerobic session. It was probably about 10 o'clock in the morning with all these housewives, and I remember being absolutely exhausted and I couldn't keep up. And all these women that were probably 20 years older than me were all, you know, fit and healthy and bouncing around, and I was just shattered. And at that time, having my own advertising agency, I was up at 5:30 at my computer, 5:30 in the morning, didn't stop until I remember even like not even having time to eat properly, or really having to squeeze in a toilet stop and then getting to still having clients on the call or on the phone at like 10 o'clock at night. And it was one of those, it was like that all the time. And so when I was in this aerobics class, I just realized how depleted I really was. And so I was at the gym and they offered yoga as well. And I thought, well, why not? Let's go try that. And the first session I had, it was actually in the spinning studio. So they had this hot, sweaty spinning studio, took the bikes out, wiped down the walls quickly, and then we had our yoga session. And I think of it now, and that's so horrific because I think of the environment that I've been doing yoga in Bali, where it's all beautiful and outdoors and so zen and incense and all these amazing things. And my first session was very, very different. However, I felt incredible. And I remember thinking, oh, wow, there's so much more to this. It's not just stretching and flexibility, but I actually felt so much calmer and so much more relaxed. And I felt like I could actually cope with my day. And that's essentially what an hour yoga class is it's physical exercise as well as meditation, breath work, and really slowing down. So it was just such an incredible experience. And I wanted to do more. And then I went to a yoga studio and I was like, oh, okay, this is the full proper experience. But this was still in South Africa. And then I went on a weekend retreat. I was studying metaphysics at that time. So I was always interested in personal development. And even though I was in all the advertising, in my own time, I was studying separately. And so I went to one of my mentors, I went to her workshop for the weekend, and we were focusing on purpose and intuition and wholeness. Those were the 3 days and the 3 themes. And when we got to purpose, I realized, like, oh, wait a minute. I feel like there's more meaning for me. There's something else I can do that has more meaning. And it's not just about marketing other people's products or making the world look pretty. It's about how can I actually make more of a difference. And on that weekend, I decided I want to get out of my company and I want to be a yoga teacher. And I think my dad had a heart failure because he was always telling me my whole life, you can't dance professionally because you're not ever going to make any money. And here I was going, I'm going to give up my advertising agency and I'm going to go and teach yoga instead. So that was where it all really started.
Lots of questions crop up. I think when we decide that we're going to do something, I think sometimes it can be challenging enough for us to kind of, maybe I'm wrong here, but obviously we have to make a decision. But then we've got our loved ones, family and friends who will maybe not be into or not have any insights or any familiarity with the area that we're looking at, in your case, yoga. And then we've got to deal with their reactions. When you got the reaction from your dad, did that sway you in any way, or had you fundamentally, did you know that was your destination?
That was, at that stage, I wasn't trusting myself enough yet. So it's been such a thread for me my whole life, and I'm so much better at it now, but trusting that intuition. And I think because we had been learning about that weekend, about how strong your intuition is, and by listening to that, that's how we know we're on our path. And our body also gives us messages, and there's all these messages along the way, and it's just really listening and being open to those. And I was still quite young, and I hadn't been through the hardships of life to know that, oh, wait, now I'm off my path. So I was probably still listening to other people a lot as well. And I remember being quite concerned, and quite worried and letting fear take over. And so in the back of my mind was my dad's voice going, oh, but what about this agency and this career that you've built up? But my parents have always been so supportive. So they will always turn around and say, as long as you're happy, it actually doesn't matter. And I think my dad's also got used to me now. So he knows that I'm doing all this yoga and this woo-woo stuff. And he totally trusts it. And he tells me, just carry on talking to your angels. He calls me doll. Doll, just carry on talking to your angels. I'll be fine. So, I've got business coaches and I've got angels. And he knows that that's how I work. But what was interesting is at that time, I was actually married and I was in business with my husband. So we had our agency together. And so never mind having to deal with my dad, I went back to my partner, or to my husband, and said to him, I don't want to be in this company together anymore. I need to leave. And that was when my voice, my inner voice, and that intuition and that inner wisdom was starting to shout at me and going, you can't be in this space anymore. You need to get out. And so that was one of the first big steps. And I mean, there's a whole lot of stories after that, but that was one of the biggest steps of listening to myself. That was really, really, really important. And I'm so grateful that I did.
That's it. That's really interesting. So, well, very difficult, because I didn't know that. So that piece is news to me, that you were in a relationship.
New information.
Then you've got to extract yourself from that whilst you're married. So that must have been incredibly difficult. But what is screaming out to me is that the inner voice piece, that you were you finding a newfound resilience that you had to tap into to kind of navigate through this situation?
Yeah, I think it was always there. Like we all as human beings, we're all intuitive. But when we grow up, we learn to block that, and we learn to not listen to our inner voice and rather listen to people in authority, or parents or partners or bosses, and we forget to listen to ourselves. And not to say that we always like, oh, I'm always right. It really is about just trusting the process. And you can feel it. We can feel it in our body. And at that time, I was starting to feel very, very depleted, and energy levels were super low, like I said, in that aerobics class. So for me, I just knew. And I think deep down, we all do. Like, we just know what is the right path. And so often we get stuck and we get in our own way. And a lot of the time, and this is where I had 2 major burnout episodes. This is why the burnout happened, was because I was so busy trying to please others that I forgot about myself. And these were lessons now after this whole experience. But thank goodness I had already started listening to this intuition. And I know when I don't, then life is very hard. And I take paths that are so difficult and so complicated, and you feel like you're hitting your head against a wall, and it's extremely challenging. And now I know when things are aligned and I'm on my path and I'm listening to that intuition, life just seems to flow, and it's so much easier. And this is what I tell my coaching clients. I'm like, it was just about making our life a little more simple and easier, and it does. And when we listen to ourselves, it's not about going against what our partners are saying, but it's probably also communicating with them. And in the end, it's best for everybody, because everybody's in a better space. Everybody's in a space where they're feeling more content and more happy with life and more fulfilled. So if we can all just really listen to our intuition and follow that inner wisdom, then sure, imagine what an amazing world we would be living in.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So listening to our intuition. So for people listening, watching, who totally resonate with everything that you've said, that they invariably make decisions that are based on what other people's wants and needs are, and really don't really serve them. I think most of us can relate to that, and I think there's an awful lot of us that don't have the tools to understand how we can maybe lever ourselves out of that situation and become more focused on us. So listening to our intuition, what does that look like? And for people listening and watching, how can maybe they understand that that is their intuition talking to them?
Oh yeah, great question. So actually the first 2 steps of my program that I created, called Redesign Your Life, is very much focusing on this, because I feel like this is where we get stuck. And so we're so busy going, well, is that my intuition, or is it, what was that voice, and how do I know if that's my intuition or not? It's really challenging. And step number 3 in my program is all about envision and planting seeds and going out there and creating this life that you want to create. And everybody wants to jump to that step first. I'm like, no, wait. There's 2 steps before that. So, because you can't just go out there and create stuff in your life if you are feeling drained and if you're feeling exhausted and depleted. We need to clear all that out first. And so the first tool I would share, or the first step, is really in my program and just in my life in general, is letting go and what is not serving us, and being able to tell the difference if something is working for us or not. And it can be something small, like a little habit, and that is not serving us, like staying up until 2 a.m. every night, and or being on our computers before we go to bed, or having our phones next to us when we, our devices on us all the time. So just little things like that, and being able to have healthier lifestyle habits definitely help. And also, like, letting go of situations that might be draining us. For example, a job, if maybe you're in a job that's not working for you, but you're stuck in it because you feel like you should be, or because other people say that, if you've got this job, then you're super successful, or you're doing it for the money, but it doesn't feel fulfilling, or there's a boss that doesn't resonate with you. There's so many different reasons of why you might be feeling drained. Or it might be something like, I want to be my own boss and I want to create my own thing, but I'm too scared to take that step. So it's about pinpointing what is actually depleting us and what's draining our energy. And once we know that, and that's a lot of internal, what's the word? In respect, I'm losing my English here. Internal reflection. That's what the word is. So, and often people don't have time. We're so busy running around the world and creating so much stuff in our lives, and we don't have time to just slow down and be able to focus and be able to really listen. And so the first step is really letting go. And a lot of that is also letting go of all these things that we're cluttering our life with and our time with. And so if we can slow down and just spend some time on your own, and whether it's meditating or yoga or just sitting and looking at nature, all of a sudden you'll hear this little inner voice that you didn't even know was there. And then that's step 2, which is all about recharge, and that's about self-care. And by having this time for ourselves, it's not actually being selfish. It's about being able to recharge our batteries. And whatever that means for you, for me, it's meditation every day is like a non-negotiable. And doing my yoga practice, definitely. But there's other ways being able to recharge and just taking that time for ourselves. And when we do this, we're clearing out the clutter, we're clearing out what's draining our energy, and we can then tune in to our body and our intuition. And often our bodies are tools to give us almost tips and hints and direction to see if we are aligned or not, if we are listening to our intuition. Because if we're not, often our body's not well, or we're feeling sick, we're feeling nauseous, we've got that knot in our stomach, or we getting headaches, or there's some message. And when we're so busy, we're too busy working and then, overcompensating with going out and socializing and eating and drinking and just, you know, piling in all this stuff into our lives and into our bodies that it's difficult to listen and to tell. So yeah, there's a few little steps along the way, but it is clearing out that first step of letting go and unhealthy lifestyle habits in there as well. Second step is recharging. And then by that stage, you can then have this time to yourself, and then that little voice. And that's the thing with intuition. It's not this big booming Hollywood voice that's going to tell you what to do. It's so subtle. And your intuition, for me, it's in my gut. So the solar plexus is above our belly button and below our ribs. And it's just this deep knowing. And the more we can connect with that, the more we can just be aligned in our life.
Yeah. As you've been in this space for a number of years now, and I'm sure, like everybody has situations in their lives where maybe intuition comes along. So for you, are you able to sort of pinpoint it a little bit more precisely than, I guess, when you first started out on this journey?
Definitely. Like now I know straight away. I'm like, oh, okay. And it doesn't mean to say it's just like, oh, there's my intuition. I'm going to listen to that and I'm going to change direction, and life's all going to be easy and simple and rainbows and unicorns. And I'm not saying that at all. Sometimes it can be really difficult because you know you've got to have difficult conversations and you're going to be in challenging experiences, and you've got to really show up. And it's about being true to ourselves, but doing it in a way that can be kind and considerate as well. So I know straight away when I'm veering off my path, and my body is what tells me. And recently I had to make a choice, and it literally is my body started feeling those feelings of fatigue and feeling drained and feeling depleted and having anxiety, not being able to sleep properly at night, waking up in the middle of the night, worrying about things, even starting to get to the point of feeling a bit of depression. And so when it gets to that point, I'm just like, I know straight away and I can feel it. And it literally would come within a few days. And I'm like, I know what's off. And then I need to change things and change course and make that choice, which is so hard. And in that moment, you're like, no, I don't want to, because you know, it's hard. It's like I call it Earth School. I was like, we're here on Earth School to learn and grow. It doesn't mean to say it's going to be easy. So it makes us have to really show up in a real and authentic way. And I know my body so well now that I know when I need to do that, even though I try to avoid it when I if I can. But I know what happens if I don't. It's a non-negotiable for me because I know where I've been before and I don't wish that on anyone. So I'm just like, okay, no, things need to change so I don't get there again.
What's very interesting, everything's interesting around what you're saying, and I'm, as I alluded to at the start of this conversation, I was keen to kind of like dig into all the tools and all the things you do. You know, you're sharing those now, so thank you. But what's very interesting about how our body, you know, our mind and stress, how they're all interlinked, because I think particularly in 2023, where everybody's 1,000 miles an hour, everybody's too busy to do this, do that, to take 5 minutes. I guess the ironic thing is we don't realize by not, I guess, leaning into our own time and actually our own space, we're actually detracting from, I guess, the life of fun and happiness and peace and the life that we want.
Totally. And, you know, living in Bali taught me that so much. So I was pretty much forced to slow down because my body would just couldn't stand up eventually. So I couldn't get out of bed. And so I was like, okay, this needs something needs to change. And I was in Bali I was in Bali running 3 retreats. And at one point, I remember standing at the airport about to welcome this group of ladies that had just arrived or were just arriving for a retreat. And I was standing there all in, like, you know, the Balinese beautiful traditional dress and all ready. But I actually felt like I was going to faint. I had to sit down because I was so weak at the time. And I mean, this was almost a year, probably about 9 months after I realized I was burnt out and I couldn't actually function anymore. And so I'd already cut back things in my business. I was running 2 businesses at that time. I just shut one down. I just like let it go. this one, this my wellness company, and this is what was so ironic. I mean, I was running wellness companies, and here I was burning out. I call myself the burnt out yogi, and telling everybody else about living their life in this way where it's focused on lifestyle and wellness. And but the thing is, I was doing that already. I was still meditating, yogaing, going to sleep early, drinking my water, doing all the lifestyle things that I knew would help. Except the business I was just doing too much. I had too much stuff on my plate, and it was all things that I loved. Everyone's like, oh, you've got to live on purpose and do work that you love and do work that you feel is on your purpose. And I absolutely loved what I did and so adored my clients. But I was so busy giving to everybody else and trying to do my things as well. And it just, I just fell apart. So this was now doing these 3 retreats was after I had realized that I actually needed to change something. And I'd already started slowing down and doing less. But I got to Bali, and I mean, my whole body was shutting down. I wasn't menstruating at that time. I just literally, there were so many signs. And standing at the airport, and I literally didn't have the energy to even stand. I felt like I was going to faint and pass out. And then still running a retreat for 10 days with all these ladies as well and holding space for them. So it was full on intensity. And by the end of my last retreat, I was like, I can't do this anymore. I like literally body is something. I was like, my body is totally shutting down. And so I decided something needed to change, and that's when I totally shifted that experience and then decided I was going to stay in Bali and heal. So I put myself on a 3-month healing burnout recovery program, and I can get into all of that a little bit more. But to answer your question, I then officially moved to Bali. And then COVID happened, and I was like, okay, well, this is a great place to be, on an island, or 17,000 islands actually in Indonesia, and no one could get in there. So like, okay, let's just stay here and travel around the islands. So it was a beautiful space. But what I learned there is the biggest thing was really from the locals on how to live a more simple life. And exactly what you're saying now about how the pace that we live at, especially in these amazing cities like London, New York, Cape Town, living this city life. Cape Town's different because there's quite a lot of nature here, but so many of us are living a very, very fast-paced life. And living with the Balinese people and the locals, like their life is so simple, and they don't need a whole lot of stuff. They've got they call them compounds, and the families all live together and they all support each other. But they don't need huge, big houses. They don't need fancy cars. Their life is very, very simple. And so it's all about family. It's all about community. It's about their spirituality. And their day is very much, it's very calm. And so it was such a beautiful experience to experience a whole different culture that's not about pushing and striving and achieving and overdoing and burning out all the time. And they out in the rice fields, and they all connecting and chatting together. And it's, as I said, it's all about community, and they're going off and doing their ceremonies. There's so many ceremonies there. So it's a whole different life. And that made me realize the way that we're doing it in this whole fast-paced Western world doesn't mean to say that's the only way. Like, there's a different way of living, and it's okay, and it works, and it's actually much better and healthier for us as well. So that's what I'm really passionate about, is supporting my clients and anybody who wants to hear my message, is to really shift the perception. And how can we slow down? How can we tune in? How can we let go? And how can we wake up to living our best lives?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So you serve, I know, women entrepreneurs, business people, corporate people. And so people that have got a busy life now that are listening to this, but are totally resonating with what you're saying, and are thinking, yeah, I recognize a lot of what Sharni's saying, and I need to implement that into my life. Maybe they enjoy their jobs as well, or they enjoy their lives, but they recognize that something's not quite right. Maybe they're not on the cusp of burnout. Maybe in that they're on that, I need to make some changes. So for people that are maybe in that space, they're entrepreneurs, they've got something going on, or they've got their own business, are there subtle things that they can do to kind of recognize where there are challenges and maybe there are things that they can implement. I know we're going to talk about your programs and stuff, at some point, but what can those guys maybe look at and do and consider?
Yeah, it's such a beautiful question, and it's so valid, because not everybody can go off onto an island and go and live there for 5 years
They
to
can't come
recover
to
from
Bali.
burnout.
I want to be in
Yeah.
Bali.
Well, you can come join me on a retreat in Bali. That is
I might
possible.
do
But
randomly. There's a full pattern that's rocked up. So, I wouldn't totally rule that out.
yeah, definitely would love you to be there. But yeah, it's about how to make subtle changes in your daily life. And when I talk about redesigning your life, it doesn't have to be this whole huge life overhaul. Like you're saying, people might really enjoy their job, so they might be happy in their marriages and living their life that they're living. But it's about redesigning your life for the better. So I believe there's always one or two little things that we can adjust and tweaks that we can make. And it's starting off small. So starting off, and I've actually even got an online course called Burnout Bliss, and it's very simple. It's a 5-day, 5-day course, 1 hour a day, and you get worksheets and things as well to work through for yourself. And simple, easy to do, but so valuable. And I remember when I was filming it, we were doing some live programs as well at the same time, and the ladies there were so blown away by the simple steps that I gave and simple tools. And for me, it's just general knowledge. But for these women, they were like, oh, wow, drinking a glass of warm lemon water in the morning is going to really shift my physiology and how my body works, because it puts you into that detox mode. And yeah, just like small little things like that, and nurturing ourselves. And so within that program, I talk about the first thing is really looking at your nutrition. And I think for all of us, like, how can we just make small little changes in our life around our food to support us? Because food is essentially fuel to give us energy to keep on going. And if we're not eating properly, then you're not filling your body with your that fuel to be able to support you. And I remember doing in one of my coaching with one of my corporate wellness clients, and it was a 3-month program with him. And he said to me, like, he didn't eat during the day. He had no time to eat, but he drank, I think it was 10 cups of coffee in a day. And each cup of coffee had 2 spoons of sugar in that. And I was like, and he was like, and then I go to gym straight after that, and I don't know why I have a headache at the end of the day. I was like, well, maybe because you're not fueling your body. And so we just discussed and brainstormed a few little things that could make a difference to him. And in my mind, I'm going, well, you have this incredible canteen downstairs, which is so easy for you to go to. You don't even have to make your own food. And in his mind, he didn't have time to do that. So I said to him, well, why don't you just have like a banana and some nuts that you can keep in by your desk, and you can just snack on that throughout the day. And that's just something small and easy, like a tip for him that really helped and really, was able to support him and give him a little bit more energy throughout the day and not have so many cups of coffee. So little things like that, nutrition is really important. And with that is also knowing your body. So knowing what you might need. And here I always suggest making sure you're having your checkups, making sure you're seeing the doctors, and whether it's alternative doctors or, but making sure that your blood pressure is right, all those things that we need to know, because knowing if you're anemic is going to have a huge, big impact on you. And if you're feeling fatigue, that might be one of the reasons. So having our vital checkups is really important as well. And then things like exercise. I mean, like, this is simple stuff. It's not these like, huge breakthroughs that I'm sharing with you now, but it's the small things that do make a difference. And exercise really does make a difference, but not exercising to kill ourselves. It's also about doing gentle things like yoga you get some crazy yoga, different styles of yoga that can be full on as well, but some gentle stretching is really good as well. And so what is your exercise routine, and are you sticking to it? It's about just being consistent. And then looking at things like I work a lot around cyclical living, and my main program is really based on I've combined ancient healing tools and modern life coaching tools and science-based stuff as well. So it's a combination of all of it. But we look at traditional Chinese medicine, and we look at that's very much based on nature. So what your listeners might be able to do is really, like, anybody listening to the show, you can go out there and just use nature as your example. So for me, I'll eat, and I encourage my clients to eat your biggest meal in the middle of your day, because that's when the sun is highest. That's when your energy is the highest, and not eating this huge big meal before you're going to go to bed. So little things like that, and working with the cycles of nature. So during winter, really being able to go more inward, to being able to hibernate a little bit more, to do less, and to use that time to, when summer comes along, then you need more of that energy. And not only working with those the cycles of the seasons, but there's also the cycles of the month, like the moon. So I will work a lot with full moon energy, because if you think, the moon is so strong that it literally can move the ocean, and we 70% water, so, or minimum 70%. So imagine how much that actually affects us. And especially for women as well, we've got our own cycles that we're working with. So how can we work with that? And I know, chatting to you, who's a male who's never experienced this, Paul, but
Yes.
as women, so many of us just plow through, our menstruation period of the month. And in my diary, I block out 3 to 4 days of the month, and I refuse to put in any calls, any meetings, any workshops, any trainings. I call it my moon cave time, and really going inward. So it's like, how can we take that self-care? How can we say no to things so we can say yes to ourselves? And being able to be a little bit selfish is how it's seen in the world, but in the end, it's actually just really self-care. So all those are just like small little, tips and tools that we can implement on a daily basis. And there's so many of them, but those are just a few that I can think of on the top of my head that I can share with you in the audience.
No, they're amazing. And what's interesting about everything that you said, some of the things, exercise and stuff like that, it's all, when I say it's all logical, it should be logical, but a lot of us don't do these things. And a lot of people don't know why we should do these things, why why the various things that you said, outline, that we should do, because it's going to positively impact our lives, our body, our moods, our energy. That we can stay glued to a PC, a laptop, drink 8 cups of coffee a day, and that, we might tick that as a successful day. And it's kind of almost replanting different seeds in our brains just to kind of get us to think with clarity and with just a little bit of common sense. And I guess, you work with lots of clients. I guess the guy that you outlined that drank the cups of coffee, when you're working with clients that may be on the cusp of burnout, or maybe they are burnt out, what's it like for you to kind of, like, I guess almost like a pincer movement, get them to reassess where they are now and where they want to go, and the steps they need to put in place to actually make that transition?
And that's exactly what it is. It's going, okay, you're here now, you're at point A, you want to be at point B. So let's figure out the steps of how we can get you there. And that's what coaching is. And it's interesting, because now being back here in South Africa and being more in that city lifestyle, and where everybody is at a faster pace, it's different to Bali, and nobody ever seems to work in Bali. I don't know what anybody does, but we're all entrepreneurs and all like digital nomads lying on the beach doing nothing. But being back now in kind of like the real world again, what is that like? And burnout is so big here. And I was just doing some research last week, asking what practitioners are around, because I'm getting some like local clients. I want to be able to send them to, really good medical and alternative healers. And a lot of them have got like 3 to 4 months waiting list. I was like, well, if you're burnt out, you don't have 3 or 4 months to wait to be able to see somebody. And so, it's crazy. It's crazy. And so what I do is really about, and like you said, to that guy that's drinking that many cups of coffee, is how to get them to see the benefits straight away. And this is what I do in my coaching program. The first thing we do is we do a roadmap. So we have a 2-hour session, and I assess their whole life. And we look at everything. We look at all 5 major areas: their lifestyle habits, their health, their work, their relationships, and manifesting abundance, kind of like the biggest things. And everything kind of comes in within that, and find out where they are, where they want to be, what's working for them, what's not. And we have like this beautiful, this amazing session. At the end, they get this incredible PDF document, which is all like beautifully designed and lots of lovely photos and very inspirational for them. And it literally is a step-by-step path of, okay, if I do this, I'll get this result. And this is where I want to be. This is what's going to help me get there. Because you've got to break it down into smaller parts. We can't just be like, okay, I want to be at this space, and then it's so overwhelming and it's so scary and it feels so big that often we don't go there. But that's where coaching is different to therapy, because coaching, we're focusing on now and how we can get there in the future, rather than going into the past and unraveling that. So it's just super powerful. And I love it, because also what I do is I guarantee my clients, when they start working with me, I say, if you don't feel like this roadmap is supporting you, or if it's aligned, or if it's not resonating with you, I'll give you your money back before we even start with the whole coaching process. So they will have that already. And if they feel like, okay, no, this isn't really done much for me, then I totally give them the money back. But I've never had anybody do that, because they're just so like, oh, wow, I can see how this can happen. I can see how this is possible. And then throughout the program, which is a 3-month program, because I found out doing a lot of research that our habits actually only change after 66 days. And we all think it's after 21 days, but no, it's actually longer. And that's why for me, I did a 10-week program. Like, I put myself on my own burnout recovery program, and that's how I base, this program. But it's not only about burnout recovery or burnout and prevention. It really is about, okay, how can I live my best life, and what does that look like, and how can I get there? So then it's about taking them through week by week what that is. And we do coaching. They've got the online program that they work through on their own time. And everything is about body, mind, soul. So it's like, how do we connect all of those? The body is all including yoga sessions, breath work, meditation is the mind. And body, we're also looking at nutrition, what to eat during this time to support you. And then the soul is going into more of the life coaching and really digging deep and really reflecting on a lot of things. And the biggest thing is getting over our patterns that just keep on bringing us into that same space of why we spiraling downwards. So how do we shift those limiting beliefs? How do we break those patterns? How do we do things differently so we can really reach those goals that we're really aspiring to?
Yeah, it must be incredible for you when you're working with people that are clients that come in and they're maybe in quite a desperate situation in terms of their lives unraveled, and maybe sometimes it's difficult to see the wood for the trees when we're in those moments. So for you to be able to work with them, to go step by step, look at the 5 areas step by step, and actually get them to a point where they've got clarity, they're living healthier, they've got much more balance, they understand them. They understand, I guess, they understand how to live, and it's almost relearning it. I guess you talk about redesigning. What's that like for you?
Oh my word, it is like job satisfaction is 1,000%. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. I love what I do so much, and I've had to redesign the way that I work and what my offerings are as well. So I also only take on a handful of clients at a time. Whereas before I was seeing so many clients and I was running around for everybody. And now I'm like, no, I also need to be making sure that I'm in a good space so I can support them on their journey. And so it's very important that that for me and for my clients, that I'm really giving them my full attention. And so I'm not burning out along the way. And then, but I love what I do, and being able to see the shift and the change in these clients is phenomenal. And the results are ridiculous. Like one woman, she was happy in her job. She was living, she was happy with her life, but she was feeling like she was a bit overweight, and she ended up losing 15 kilos in those 3 months. And it was just an incredible experience of it. Everybody gets something different out of it, but it's what their goal is and what they're focusing on.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I mean, I've got one client at the moment, she's in Saudi Arabia, and this is just incredible because it's such a different life to what I've grown up in. And we all talk about having freedom and having joy, and their life is very, very different for women in Saudi. And the reason why she came to me is because she wants to break out that mold of, she doesn't want to really have children. She's 34. She
Oh,
says she
wow.
doesn't want to have
That's
kids right now. She
interesting.
doesn't want to marry a guy and be stuck and attached to this man, because you know that they can't even travel out of, women can't travel out of Saudi Arabia without being signed out by a male. So either their father or their brother or their husband. So they just have a lot more restrictions in their life. And she decides she doesn't want to have her wings clipped like that. So I'm now helping her, but going, okay, well, how can we then change this for you, and what does that look like for you? And just totally redesigning how her life would look if she just succumbed to the norm and what she should be doing. And she said before she came to me, she was seeing a psychiatrist and she was about to go onto medication because she felt so depressed and so sad with what her life was going to become. And that's often the point where people come to me, is when they're at rock bottom and they don't know what else to do, but they want to heal, not even heal, but they want to change their lives in a healthier way. And so everything that I do and everything that I discuss is always the alternative natural route first. And obviously I'm not saying that medication, is bad. I mean, I think it's vital and it's important for certain people. But if we can do it on our own first, because it's empowering ourselves and being able to do it in a way where we're not having to rely on substances or alcohol or antidepressants to get through the day. And when you just live and you're just excited about life, and even when life is hard, it's like, how can we still be at peace with
Yeah.
whatever's going on? And that's what yoga has really taught me. Like, how can we stand in this tree pose and be still and be calm when the rest of the world around us is in chaos? So it really is about, it's so rewarding. I love what I do so much, and
I
I
can
really
tell.
live it
I can
myself as
tell.
well. So I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I can. What comes through, clearly you love what you're doing, and I'm just in awe about how much you know about all these different things, about how they interconnect and so forth. It's always inspiring when you meet somebody that knows so much and talks enthusiastically. I know that we could talk probably for hours about this. I wanted to ask you a question around, so you live part of your time in Bali, which is beaches, and everybody's probably walking very casually on beaches with their laptops, with their books, and so forth. And now you're back in Cape Town. So when you make that transition from Bali to Cape Town, do you have to do any adjustments for yourself, to just because different climates, different maybe pace of life, different scenery? What does that look like for you?
We joke around and we say, like, how can we keep this Bali bubble with us when we leave Bali? Because it's so true. When you leave, it's a different world out there. It really is. And even just the climate is a bit of a shock to the system.
Yeah.
And I actually hadn't been to Cape Town for 3 years because of COVID. So wasn't able to, I didn't leave Bali for 3 years. So it's tropical there all year round. I mean, you don't get less than 30 degrees really. So it's a very interesting place to
Sounds like
be
heaven.
living and working. Well, it's pros and cons to the place as well. But it is. It was an incredible experience. And so now coming back to Cape Town, the first time I came back was actually last December, so recently, and I was a bit cautious because I didn't know how I was going to feel, because I'd been living in this very slow paced different life for so long. I didn't know coming back if I was going to get swept away in all the busyness and the craziness. So it was an interesting experience coming back. And what I realized though is that I've shifted so much and I've ingrained my practices and my daily routine into my life so well that it's going to take a lot to kind of sway me off that. And it's about just sticking to that routine and having this Bali-ness with me. This Bali bubble is like, I wake up and every morning is my meditation, and it's 23 minutes because it's TM meditation, transcendental meditation. So you do 20 minutes and then you take 3 minutes to come out. And that's like a non-negotiable for me. So that happens every morning. And then there's exercise probably 3 to 5 times a week, depending on what I'm doing, most of it mainly yoga. So that's always happening. And it does get challenging though when there's different routines, there's different habits. Coming home and it's like staying with my folks for a while and connecting with them. They eat big meals at dinner, I don't, and then my mom was like, why aren't you eating? You need to eat. I'm like, well, I just do it differently to you. So, but I know for me what works. And I must say what's different though, coming back into Cape Town and South Africa, is that we've got really good wine here. And I've hardly drunk any alcohol living in Bali, living in Ubud. And so now going to visit all these wine farms has actually been quite fun. But it's about not being too hard on ourselves and too strict and rigid either. It's about that balance. And I know what works for me, and I know as soon as I'm getting out of balance. So I know that I can go out and enjoy a glass of wine or two with friends and it'll be fine. But if I had to do that all the time, or having 1 or 2 bottles, then it's a different story. So, and I can feel the effects in my body. So I know what works for me. And so it is just having those healthy lifestyle habits have really helped me to be in this space. But I must say it is challenging, because I know a lot of people here. This is, I grew up in South Africa. And so it's the having to say no to others is the biggest thing for me. That's the most difficult, and not saying yes to everything and be socializing all of the time. Like, how do I keep myself sane and still protect my energy and my space, and have that self-care time, have that nurturing time, and not pile up my diary too much, because I'm so used to not having as much in my diary. And September this month was all a little bit like, there were a few months, in a row when I had a few months where there was a lot going on. Then all of a sudden I've started to feel claustrophobic again and anxious. That anxiousness was coming up. So I know for me, it's like, okay, I need to clear my diary out to have more space, because then I feel like I can breathe a bit. So yeah, all these tools that I've just learned and implemented in teaching others, it's necessary to really have those when you're in a space where it's a little bit more challenging to keep that balance. But balance in our life is key. So it's like whatever works for you, and how do you keep that for yourself?
And what's lovely about your story, your journey, and the fact that you're helping people out, we can see your shift in how you've kind of, so that shift, you've kind of almost is put you on a different path. It's created this different life plan for yourself. It almost felt that when you went to that yoga class, there was almost this watershed moment, and things were going to change because there was something just happened. And the people that are listening to this and are enjoying what you've covered and in all the different areas, are there, forgive me for already clarified or answered this, but in terms of maybe them being more open, or maybe being more aware when life is showing them a different plan, is that something that they can maybe be more mindful of, or be more open to?
Yeah, definitely. So what helped me, my biggest my first big burnout that I had, and I actually didn't even know how I was going to get through that. And I just remember this message kind of coming to me. I was reading something in a book, and it just, when something just really resonates.
Yeah.
And I just got this, it was almost like this message from what I'd read in the book, and this download that I got, which was have faith and trust the process. And I repeated that over and over and over. And that was the first night that I could actually sleep properly. And so being able to just know that when things feel hard, and this is the whole point of having a perfect failure, is that life isn't going to be easy all the time. There's not going to be roses and like I said earlier, unicorns and butterflies. And so when life feels like it's going in a different path to what you had planned and what you had expected, then just know that that's maybe where your path's meant to lead. And how can you surrender into that? How can you lean into it? How can you trust the process and just go, okay, I don't know where this is going, but I just need to trust that this is the best thing for me right now, and not try and control everything. And as soon as we let go of that control, and we trust that the flow is where we're meant to be and follow that, it's an incredible experience. It's hard though, because we're so used to controlling, and we want to, I had an idea in my mind. I was going to be married, and I was going to have all these kids, and I was going to, run my own business and do all these things. And my life didn't turn out that way. And it turns out that I actually divorced the husband, because and that was where the first burnout happened, because that was just extremely traumatic. So I was 31. I was getting divorced, and I was the first person in my family or my friends that I knew that was ever divorced. And I felt like such a failure at that time. I'd left my advertising job. I'd started up this wellness company, and I was just exhausted, and I couldn't put the energy in that I needed to. And I remember seeing a therapist at the time, and she said to me, she said, Sharni, yoga, and she said, in life, actually, for that matter, is not perfect. It's not about being perfect. It's about being real.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that was a big thing for me. And she was like, just show up in your yoga classes as you. You don't have to be this perfect version of yourself. And then when I started sharing with my clients, and I always was doing one-on-one sessions, so it was very intimate and personal. And I would just say, like, this is where I'm at right now, and I'm going through this divorce. And they didn't even know this was all happening. And they were just so compassionate, and it was amazing. I got so much support. And then that journey started, and I went traveling for 9 months and did my own Eat, Pray, Love journey. And that was the start of the healing process. But it definitely is about just trust the process and know that you don't always have the full plan. You can't see the full plan. And if I'd stayed in advertising, if I'd stayed in that job, if I'd stayed in corporate even before I had my own company, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now. And I also, if I had children, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now, because I wouldn't have the energy for it. And I know that my purpose and my path in this lifetime is to really be there to support others. But I can only do that if I'm looking after myself. And this is the big reason why I've left Bali. It would have been amazing to just carry on living on that tropical island. But for me, it's also now about giving back. How can I give back to my community that I grew up with, that I live with? How can I give back to Africa? And there's a lot of support that Africa needs here. And how can I give back to the world? And that's why I love doing these podcasts. I love sharing these stories. I love sharing this message. And the message is really like, how can you stress less, and how can you live more? And how can we redesign our lives for the better, so that we can really be more in tune with ourselves, and we can be more aligned, and we can have more people that are living their purpose in the world. And I believe I'm just meant to be, on this path, and the spokesperson and this guinea pig who's gone through all of it to be able to really inspire others as well. And maybe if you're at a challenging time, or if you're feeling, that life is taking you in a new direction, maybe it's just about surrendering to see where that lines up. And it's been a long journey though, and it hasn't always been easy, but I'm so grateful. I'm like so grateful for the burnout that happened, and the failure when I thought it was a failure, and what it's turned into now, because I really do love my life, and I'm very, very grateful for the people that I have in it, the work that I do, just everything. I'm just very, very happy and content with my place in life right now. And it's a beautiful feeling to have. And I know there's not a lot of people in the world that express it that way for themselves.
No, totally, completely. I wanted to ask around, so you're an author, published books, and you've got books.
Yes.
So I would love to get some insights around the books.
Oh, yes. Well, thank you. I love writing, and it was something that also came quite as a surprise to me, but I love sharing the message. And so there's a compilation book called Ignite Your Purpose, and it shares a lot. There's a whole lot of us authors that have come together, and with this publishing company, Ignite, and it's very much around how you can ignite your own purpose, because it's got beautiful reflection questions in there as well. But within that book, there's all of us sharing our own story. And so I share a lot about my story, and you hear my story is called Letting Go of Being Superwoman. And it's very much about letting go of being in control, letting go of having it all together, letting go of trying to take over the world. And so my burnout stories are really in there, and then I share my 5-step process within that story as well. So that's a wonderful book. And then I've also got the free download for anybody who wants to read it, so for your listeners as well. And That one's called Superwoman Unplugged. It's the 5 simple steps to live your best life by doing less. And I go into a lot of detail there in the 5 different steps. But I also share like why are we burning out, and why women are at where, you know, why are we feeling like we are at this point in time, and the history of how we got here, and what we can do to shift that. And it's not only for women to read, because I feel like men reading that
Yeah, I
will
want to
also
read
be
it.
able to support their ladies. Yeah, thanks,
I
Paul.
want to read it.
Just, and I mean, it's a short, quick ebook, so it takes 20 minutes to read
Yeah.
through. It's also
Perfect,
beautifully
perfect.
designed, you know,
Yeah.
just
Read it over and
yeah.
over
So it's
again.
a really simple one to do. Yes, exactly. And it's about shifting perspective, and it's about how we can bring more yin to our yang. So,
Yeah.
you know, we've got yin and yang, and the yin and yang is very much the balance of opposites in nature. And once those are in balance, they're in harmony. And so my Superwoman Unplugged book is really about how we can bring more of that gentle, feminine, calm, relaxed, soft energy into our lives as men and women. And the more yin we can bring in, the more we really imbalance. And so it goes into a lot more of that detail in that as well. But I mean, I've also got so many blogs and all sorts of other things. And I actually did write a book. My first book I wrote and published in 2014 called Follow the Sun. And that's the story of my getting divorced and going on my Follow the Sun journey.
Oh, really?
I called it, which
Really?
is my Eat, Pray, Love journey. So yeah, a lot of writing and a lot of sharing of my own personal story. And it's important, I feel, to be able to really show up in a space where you can be vulnerable and you can be open and you can just be real and go, well, this is it. And I don't have the perfect life, and I don't want to put that pressure on myself, and I'm just doing the best that I can. And yeah, I want to encourage other people to live that in that way as well, where we don't have to always have control, and we don't have to be perfect, and we don't have to be Superwoman.
Yeah. So we're getting towards the end now, but I do have a couple of questions, if I may.
Sure.
So if you look at yourself when, I don't know, you had this burnout and you hadn't entered this world where you've got all these amazing insights and you're giving back and you're helping people to redesign their lives, do you think that the person that was experiencing a burnout, you were leaving the advertising industry and so forth, would they recognize who you are today? Or let me rephrase that. Would you have believed that you could be where you are today? That's the question I want to ask.
Oh, that's a tough question, actually. I think deep down, yes, because I think deep down we all know what we're capable of, and we all know that we can choose our own reality. But there would have been a lot of fear there as well, and going like, oh, I don't know if I can do it. And I mean, I still sit with self-doubt now. You know, I still think I don't have a lot of courage. I'm not very brave. And then I'll go, wait a minute, I need to remind myself what I've actually achieved in my life. So I think it's just normal human nature where we're always doubting ourselves anyway. But it's about how can you learn more about yourself so that you can support yourself in those moments when life does feel tough. And it still does for me in these moments as well. I mean, it's life. This is what we're here for. But how can I learn from these situations? How can I grow? How can I be a better person? How can I not get sucked down into that downward spiral, is what we call it in coaching, like downward spiral, and then self-medicating and all other stuff that just takes us further down. And so I think, yeah, years ago, I knew that I had this version of myself in there, but I just didn't know how to tap into it or how to reach her. And it's been many, many, many years of trial and error of doing that. And so that's why I think I'm so passionate about what I do, because people don't have to go to rock bottom to get the insights that I got. Like, it's so much easier to, and obviously we all want to embody things for ourselves, but you really don't have to go to that place. I can share so many tools to support you before you get there. And for example, I'm actually going to go and see a potential new client. I've got a meeting with him next week. It's a friend of a friend, and it's his mother's contacted me, and he's 23, so he's young, and his mom is just going, well, he's totally just burnt out, can't finish the last little bit of his studies, and he's choosing to do yoga and meditation rather than going out and drinking with his friends. And so I was like, that for me, I was like, wow, at 23 I was getting drunk in London, you know, in the clubs. But then yeah, exactly, I was there. So at that age, to be choosing a healthier version of I know that I have more within me, and I know that there's this other way to live. I just don't know how to get there. And I think there's so many people at that point. And this is where,
100%.
this is where I just really passionate of being able to help those people.
Yeah, no, I think it's important what you do, because I think it's really easy to live a misaligned life and live in a permanent state of discomfort and unease and not being particularly healthy. And we simply don't know how to transition or do anything about it. So what I've loved about this discussion is that your own journey, that you've navigated that scenario, that situation, but now you've learned so much along the way, and you're supporting all these people all over the world to really just not just live a better life, but understand maybe their why and what it entails to actually live a better life. So which is great or amazing, even because you understand the science and the equation and why you're doing it. Not just because if you just do something and it happens, it's great, but you want to know the why, you want to know the mechanics, you want to know the sum of why you're doing it, because it just, I think if you know that, it's so much more powerful.
Definitely. And what I always say, in my talks and to my clients, is that living your best life isn't what it looks like on the outside. Living your best life is about what it feels like for you on the inside. And I think that's where the difference is.
Yeah,
it's not about what your life looks like, because according to Instagram and Facebook and social media, there's a lot of people living their best lives. But what's actually going on inside? And so it's not about, by living your best life on the inside, you actually radiate that out anyway. So you don't even have to worry about the other stuff. But it really is like, how does it feel? How does your life feel for you right now? And if I can just share a message for people to really get in tune with that, and then be able to make necessary shifts and changes so that their life starts to feel more at ease and content and happy and fulfilled, then I feel like I've done my job.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you, do you journal as well?
Yes, often. Oh my word, I've got so many journals.
Yeah.
and I don't know which one's which. So there's journals everywhere, and it's for me, it's also about, it's a process of releasing. And so I don't follow any kind of formula really. I just journal how I'm feeling and what's going on in my life, and it's really fascinating to go back and then read how you're feeling in that moment and what was happening, and patterns. That's where we can see patterns happening as well, and how can we shift and change them. But journaling's powerful. And also adding in the gratitudes every month as well. So I do that. I always do a ritual over full moon, and that's my time for gratitude. So I always write down 10 things that I'm grateful for. And obviously we can think of that throughout the month as well. But to be able to have that and reflect on that over the last month, I feel is really important. And then new moon time, I'm always writing about my intentions for the next month, like what I want to create, what I want to manifest, what I want to bring in. So it's nice to have these rituals throughout the month to also keep us on track and keep us off our devices and actually like connected to ourselves rather than our technology that's out there as well.
Okay. So programs, how people can contact you. Where's the best way, or what's the best way for people to find out about your programs and how to contact you?
Well, what I'd love to offer is anybody that's been listening that resonates with what I've been saying, I would love to offer them a free 30 minutes consultation.
Oh, wow. Amazing.
So coaching call. Yeah, come chat with me. I love hearing where everybody's at with you, where you are in your life, and what you might be needing support with, or shifting or changing. And that call, you can connect with me. I'll share the link with you, Paul, but it's on my website as well. And I just feel like that's the best way, because then I can also get to know you and where you're at and what you're needing help with. And then I can see, because I've got so many programs and different things that can support you. So I can see exactly where they could be. And maybe it's not even something that's mine. It could be something else that I can suggest from other practitioners or things. But the best way to connect with me is on my website. So that's sharniquinn.com. And I'm on Instagram. as often as I can be, because we have to be there for the continuity, but also I land up having some like time on an island and then I forget to post.
Yeah,
So I try and be as consistent as possible. But the best way on social is in Instagram and Facebook. I'm a little bit on LinkedIn as well. And so all of those are on my website. And then, as I said, then being part of if you download the ebook, then you'll be getting weekly wellness inspiration from me, which comes via email. So yeah, just being able to connect. But I just love connecting with people. So any way you can reach out, whether it's DMing me or sending me a message or an email or if I'm getting onto a call, then yeah, I'd love to do that and be able to connect with these amazing people all over the world.
Well, you're an amazing person. Like your journey, what you're doing now and what you're going to do in the future, all amazing. And I've learned a lot, as I hope to do from a selfish perspective. I've learned a lot, and a lot for me to take away. Loads of takeaways.
Thank you, Paul.
No, thank you.
Thank you. Well, thank you for asking all these beautiful questions. And for me, it's just really, it's just about sharing. But I love being able to have this beautiful conversation with you. So thank you for having me on the show.
Well, hopefully we can do this again, so we can stay in touch and we can have future conversations. So there is one last question before I let you go. So this is the recurring question. So if you could invite 3 inspirational people for dinner, they can be alive or they can be past, who would you invite?
Oh, okay. So my go-to for one of these kind of questions is Oprah has to be on there. She's on the list. I've just always found her so inspirational. And she actually started a school here in South Africa. And she's working with the underprivileged kids here. So I just really feel quite a connection with her. And I would love to have so many conversations and ask her like beautiful questions in between all of that. So she would definitely be on the list. And then another one for me would be Mandela. So also living in South Africa, and what he did for our country was phenomenal, getting out of apartheid. And he just seemed like such a beautiful person. So I would love to have him at the dinner table, and he was just so humble and incredible. So I would have a lot of questions for him. And then I'd say the third person would be Louise Hay. I don't know if you know Louise Hay.
No, I don't know Louise Hay.
She's incredible woman. She died in her 90s, I think. And she went through quite a life when she was younger, and actually only really got into the personal development world in her 40s. And what she did and what she achieved and how she really helped so many people, especially in the 80s, was phenomenal. And then she landed up being a publisher, and there's so many books. Dr. Wayne Dyer, and there's a whole lot of authors that are published through the Hay House Publishing Company, and she is one of my inspirations. And I've got in all my coaching and especially on my yoga retreats and my wellness retreats, and at the end of a yoga session, I've got her power thought cards. They're like affirmation cards. I always use them, and everybody's just always so inspired because they're just such powerful, beautiful messages. And so I feel like Louise has been part of my journey from the beginning. And in my first book, I was quoting her, and so I would love to have her at the table, and where I can also just like share some inspiring moments with her as well.
Okay, that sounds like an awesome dinner. That would be an awesome.
I think so. You're welcome to come as well, by the way, Paul. You're invited.
I will. I would be esteemed to come along. That would be amazing. I think I wouldn't be far away from who I would want to attend mine. So I think our energy and the people that we would want to attend are reasonably aligned. So I would love to make that dinner. It's been amazing having you on My Perfect Failure. Hopefully we can do this again. And thank you so much for what you're doing and for sharing all your lovely insights today.
Oh, thank you, Paul. Thank you so much for having me here. And it's been so lovely to meet you. Yeah, and I'd love to connect again and stay connected with you on, the rest of the social media world and with your audience, and just continue doing all your beautiful work as well.
Well, I'm glad that we've collided like this and we've been able to have this discussion, because it's certainly, I keep on saying, from a selfish perspective, I'm always keen to grow, learn, because there's so much I don't know. So it's lovely to meet people like yourself. So thank you. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to this episode of My Perfect Failure. We're always looking to grow the show. So please do share this episode far and wide, particularly if you know people that are looking to transition. Maybe they've burnt out and they need to or want to redesign their life. Please share this episode far and wide, and your feedback is most welcome. We're always keen to hear about the things you like and equally the things you don't like. So you can find me at paul@myperfectfailure.com, or you can find me via the contact page on the website. So until the next time, take care for now. Bye.
Thanks for listening to My Perfect Failure podcast. Be sure to visit www.myperfectfailure.com to join the conversation. Subscribe to our podcast on iTunes or Google Play. Look out for our next episode.